Talking to a key piece of the well-oiled machine that is the USTA, Nicole Munroe, joining me today to share her story. And it's going to be a well-rounded look, not just what she does career-wise, but also as a mom. We're going to get the full look of who she is on a deep level. Director right now, she is of pro tennis marketing and content at USTA. I'm Bryan Fenley, a commentator for the USTA on the challenger level and a commentator for the tennis channel. Nicole, thanks for doing this. I'm excited to highlight you and do it in a really fun way. I promise you, this will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you're excited because, Brian, I'm excited too.
So I can tell there's a lot of excitement that you feel when it comes to what you do work-wise. What is it about your work that doesn't feel like work?
That's that's a good question. I actually think about it often because there was a time years ago where I realized I spend a lot of time at work. And if I'm going to be working and dedicating, such a significant part of my life towards something, it better be something I enjoy and it better be something that I'm passionate about. And one of the things that really motivates me is being creative. And that's something that I don't take for granted a bit, is that my job really allows me to come forward and be creative every day. So it's and of course that's something I do carry across to my personal life as well.
How does that creativity carry out and get shown to your personal life?
Yeah, that's it, right? I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of creativity, right? So do I need to be creative in how I'm figuring out how to navigate getting one kid to soccer and one kid over, to a play date or whatever the case may be? You're always having to solve for problems and there are always creative ways to do that. So that's something I find myself faced with quite often.
How much of your validation and your self-fulfillment comes in being able to solve problems in whatever form it happens to be?
That really it's something I'm quite proud of, actually, is my ability to be a problem solver, and I think a lot of that comes forward when you have a positive outlook. One, you need the confidence to know that you can solve any problem that comes your way, and you wanna do it in a positive way, and I think having that self-confidence allows that to come through, really, really in a meaningful way.
That idea of being positive and taking that approach to things, how far back can you trace that and how it's helped you?
Oh, that's funny. It's not often that I allow myself the time to reflect like this, so I do appreciate this chance. I was a cheerleader for 14 years, so I think it could probably go there. And cheerleading is something that I've thought about too, in that when it comes to a team and my ambitions to lead a team professionally, and here I am in my home leading my own team of my family and cheering everyone on and doing it in a way that's really uplifting. I think having that positive outlook, there's this whole toxic toxicity culture of being too positive, which I think there's something to be said for that too, and that's something I'm learning as the years go on. But I think to really truly be positive, it's acknowledging that you're going to have a bad day, but the positivity comes forward when you're able to know, yes, but it's one bad day and it will get better.
And there's a realness that comes with that positivity as well, which I think that is a far cry from anything that's toxic, and that's what's different. What does it look like, you as a cheerleader? Let's say any day with your kid in an afternoon, you've got them home, your kids. What does that look like? Nicole Munroe as a cheerleader, set the scene, paint the picture for us. What are you doing?
I'm telling them, well, one, they're getting off the bus and I'm wanting to hear about their day. I'm asking, who did you sit with at lunch? What kinds of things did you enjoy today? Was there anything that you want to talk about that had happened today? And coaching them through even those harder times. But making sure that they just stay on track and have a good time while doing it. I think that's another thing that might get lost in the craziness of just trying to be a full-time mom and also be running a household. You still want to have fun with it too and not take yourself so seriously, and that's something that I do try teach my kids, along the way as well.
As much as you're checking in on your kids and your family and your work, how hard is it sometimes to check in on yourself?
Ah, right. Right. Find me the time, Brian. No, but even those small moments, I have definitely gravitated towards the practice of meditation. This was even before COVID, but certainly when COVID was, when we were in the thick of it, I was here. I just would throw my noise cancellation headphones on, no matter what was happening around me. And I really needed to take those moments, just so that I could be productive and that I could be my best self. Because, I think we all, as moms, find ourselves where in the midst of it all, you do lose yourself. And we need to make sure that we are looking inward and building that strength so that we can be the best selves for not just our kids, right? But for our families, our friends, our colleagues, just everyone that we're coming in contact with.
Being in contact with your kids during those early COVID times and having them around you and developing that strength, how proud are you of the way in which you maneuvered that situation? And how has that made you a better worker with your colleagues and developed maybe a, an added tinge of gratitude in being around them?
Oh, absolutely. Gratitude is something that is not lost on me a bit, right? I heard a quote actually today from our tournament director, Stacey Allister. She had said, "Gratitude." I might not say it as eloquently, but it was gratitude is um, allows you to be grateful for the past, allows you to be present, but then also have a positive outlook for the future. And that is something she said it so well, but I realized it's something that I really did see come to fruition during COVID. And I'm immensely proud of the way that not only myself, but everyone, all my loved ones. I mean, we all really, everyone, right? We all have this common thread that we experienced, and it wasn't easy. And I think a lot of us are still even feeling the effects of it. I see it even with my kids. But and I can talk about that too, the aftermath of it. But I think if anyone would have told us, in 2019 that this was going to happen and that we all were going to find ourselves in this place, both professionally and personally, I don't think anyone could have even imagined, how far it would have extended. But for me personally, my youngest was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 2 weeks before the world shut down. And so I ended up having to work from home 2 weeks before. I joke that I was a bit of a trendsetter, but it's not exactly the trend that you want to set. But I was truly grateful. You don't want to say you're grateful for a pandemic ever, but I was grateful for my own situation and that it afforded me the opportunity to stay home and learn about how to effectively manage type 1 diabetes. It was something that I had no experience with at all. And this was my 2-year-old at the time. And so here I am, in finding myself in this situation that I'd never been in a lot of different ways. And yeah, it's something that still I'm very proud of, and grateful for in a weird way. But then looking ahead or back now, seeing the effects that it had on our kids, on my kids specifically, I can say it was really challenging. My oldest was going, it was her fifth grade year. So we were in COVID for her last year of elementary school, her first year of middle school, really formative years socially. And so I had to then try to find ways that I could be there for her, in person, in real life, the way that her friends would be, but still be this mother figure to her and coach her through homeschooling and all the while really wanting to still advance professionally. We still had a US Open that took place in the midst of it all. So there were a lot of moving pieces, and you see this figure of a mother, a working mother, juggling all these balls. Stay-at-home mothers as well, we're constantly juggling these balls in the air, and at any moment one could slip. And so it was definitely a feat of strength, that's for sure.
When I hear the way in which, Nicole, you've been there for your kids, how deep is your love for them?
There are no words, Brian. It runs so deep. I mean, for my youngest now, I have to serve as his pancreas, right? I'm serving. I'm completely dialed in at all moments of the day into his blood sugar levels to make sure that he's getting the appropriate amounts of insulin. And then I have my oldest, my only girl, who's now 13. And it's like, you know, watching her go through things is also bringing up things for my own childhood in a really beautiful and impactful way. And then I have my middle child who, he's just the sweetest on earth. And they all, each of them have their own unique personalities, but they're my favorite people in the world to be with.
When you watch your kids grow in front of your eyes, and you mentioned your oldest and how you see a little bit of yourself in your oldest, how has watching their childhoods play out been a source of therapy or a healing for you?
Uh, in every way. First, I will tell you, I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I'm in therapy. I think everyone should be in therapy, quite honestly, especially after the trauma that we all just faced. But watching my daughter specifically, that really has bubbled up a lot for me in my childhood. I see how I see the qualities within her. For example, her eagerness to take risks, and how if if I had somebody recognizing that at my age and maybe nurturing that a bit more, who knows what would have happened, right? And you never want to look back with regret, but what I do know is that I want to acknowledge those positive attributes that she has within her and really bring them to life in the most beautiful way that I can.
That which you didn't get, you're able to supply from your childhood and now give it to her, which I think, to use your word, is very beautiful in the way that that's come full circle. What is it about your work at the USTA that you find lends itself to being most beautiful?
Oh, well, it always comes forward in different ways for me, depending on the project. Um, but it's really creating a premium experience for fans. So a lot of my days are spent producing content that is displayed on site at the US Open and on the video boards and in stadium, and thinking about how those pieces of content will engage fans and introduce them to perhaps different facets of the players in the event that they might not necessarily expect. That's something that I really really do hold close to my heart. And this year I was afforded the opportunity to work on the content that we developed for Serena Williams and her evolution. And I'll tell you, I approached that in a very different way than I have any other piece of content, because a lot of times, like I said, it's always thinking about the fans first. And here, yes, I'm thinking about the fans in stadium. Yes, I'm thinking about the broadcast and how the content will resonate there, not just domestically, but worldwide. But thinking what really, really was special for me was creating that moment for Serena, because we know how many times she's played on Arthur Ashe and how many years she's given all of us these wonderful memories. And I really did not take lightly the opportunity that I had in front of me to create this moment for her. And that I will say was one of the most beautiful, beautiful moments that I've had in my career.
What was creating that moment like in real time when you saw it play out and you saw her reaction to what you were able to help organize?
Well, I'll tell you, we had 10 days to create this content strategy. How were we going to approach it? And in all throughout the edit process, we had engaged Boom Shop Productions to help us produce these pieces of content. But um, throughout the whole process, I was a mess. I was crying. Every time we got a new cut, I was crying. It was just so emotional. And I also had the really incredible opportunity to work with Oprah on the VO for one of the pieces, the Dear Serena piece that was, I mean, talk about the experience of a lifetime. I mean, really, I was vibrating once, after that phone call that I had with her, and she did that read. So when you ask me about the specific moment of when it ran in stadium, I have to tell you, it was that 10 days prior. I still have the goosebumps now. It was that 10 days lead up. Just the whole production process was so ruthless emotionally that by the time it ran in stadium, I almost didn't want to go and watch it in stadium. I almost wanted to just sit in my office and watch it on ESPN. But fortunately, some great colleagues encouraged me to go out there, and I stood kind of on the club level watching it on the screen, and I'm looking down at Serena, and I wasn't nearly as emotional as I was, during those like third and fourth cuts that I had seen, but really it was just one of those. It was a speechless moment, quite honestly. It took my breath away.
What is it about Serena and the way in which you were able to show her story that did take your breath away and had that profound effect on you when you think about her and what she stands for and why you were overcome with emotions as you were seeing that?
Yeah, the script that Boomshot had produced, based on the quick discussion of a brief that I had given, they really, really nailed it. And I think what came forward was this thank you to Serena. And that to me was what she deserved. We know how much Serena has given to the sport, both on and off the court. But for me, something that I really held close during the whole production process was there were moments on Arthur Ashe that maybe she didn't want to think about, and maybe she didn't deserve, right? There were the moments where she was celebrated, but then there were moments where she wasn't. And it was really important to me that she had the moment that she deserved and that she earned, not just from the fans, from the US Open, from the city of New York. I mean, from all of us. And that was how this script culminated at the end. It was, with love, all of us. And that's what I really wanted to come forward. It was a thank you to her for showing us how to come back, talking about her and Olympia, on how to entertain us, how to show us how to be a champion. And no matter what you say about Serena, that's what she is. She is a true champion to the sport of tennis, and like I said, off the court as well. And it was an honor, really, to work on that.
To see her resilience through her story and her career and her life, how have you exhibited resilience too when thinking about things that she overcame? And then how does that internally go back and force you to look at your own comeback story or your own need to be resilient in times of need?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because the word resiliency is something that I do pride myself on. I don't even know if my boss would remember this, but Nicole Cancan had said to me at one point that I was resilient, and I was so struck by that. It was years ago, and when I think about it, quite honestly, it was before I even saw the resiliency in myself within myself, right? She saw something, I think, at the time that I hadn't even quite recognized. And like I said, I was really struck by that. But when I think about even just, the past 2 years, Brian, I can look at, there was a time, it was men's final of 2019, and I got a call that my father was not well and I had to leave the Open. And so I left. I went to the hospital, wasn't even on site for men's final. I was there by his side. And he passed away that day. And that really started this whole motion of events that culminated with my youngest being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and COVID and one thing after another after another. And all the while, I believed I was resilient. I believed I could go forward. And I think it comes forward for me within my career as well. You know, we all meet obstacles day in and day out. We are faced with challenges, you know, from a budget perspective, not to minimalize things, but you know, roadblocks, you know, different things getting in our way to where our vision, you know, can't come to life in the way that we want. That's again going back to what we started talking about. I think is that problem solving ability and that positive attitude and knowing that, okay, well, maybe we can't do it the way that we thought we could do it, but there's another way. And I think that might, in a roundabout way, be resiliency, right? Just being able to keep going and keep moving authentically, though, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah, and we, as we mentioned, authentically, and there's a realness to the positive influence that you have. You know, like you said earlier, there's a toxicity to certain positivity, but that's not when you're authentic. That's not when you're real. That's not when you are who you are. And what I love about this, Nicole, is that at the core of who you are, and one of the themes of your life, the constant trend, is that there's always a way. You find a way, no matter the roadblock. And that's what I want people to see about you, is that whatever comes your way, that's not the end game. There's always a way to get around things. And you've shown with that problem solving ability that you can do that. Thinking about how proud your dad must be of you, what do you think he would be saying to you about what you've become, how you've grown, and the person you've become today?
I know he would be proud. I feel him with me quite often, so I know he's there. He was one of my biggest cheerleaders, and he would be proud for sure. He always, whenever the U.S. Open came around, he was just lit up. And this was someone who never watched a day of tennis in his life, but he became the biggest fan of it for a lot of different reasons. So, yeah, he'd be proud.
Well, Nicole, as we wrap up this conversation, as people watch this, your fan club is growing by the minute as they hear your story. And this is a place to inspire. I'm so enthralled and moved by how open you were to share your story and your heartfelt messages. And I gained a lot of strength from listening to your story. And I know a lot of other people are as well as they watch this. So, Nicole, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bryan. This really was a pleasure. I just adore the work that you're doing, and I really, really value the opportunity to allow me to tell my story.